Oof, this did not go well for J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance just spoke in front of a very tiny crowd. There couldn't have been more than 150 people here. He spoke in Maine. He's traveling to so-called swing states to try to scare them into voting for MAGA Republicans. I'll show you what went down as J.D. Vance had to cut his speech early because he claimed that there was somebody who got sick at the event who needed a medical emergency evacuation, and so they shut down this press conference.
So Donald finally emerged from whatever cave he was hiding in over the last few days, and he's exactly the same. I know, shocking. He came out to make some big announcements that turned out to be meaningless, really. But in the midst of it all, he managed to threaten yet another blue state, Colorado this time. We'll get to that in a minute.
Keep you posted every step of the way. Hit subscribe.
There is one sentence that Mary Trump delivered during a November 2025 appearance on the Daily Beast podcast that Donald Trump and his political allies cannot easily dismiss or erase. According to reporting based on the podcast broadcast and Joanna Cole's interview transcript, Mary Trump gave the strongest warning she has ever publicly made about her uncle's mental condition. Mary Trump, now 60 years old, is not simply another critic attacking Donald Trump from television or social media. She is Donald Trump's niece, the daughter of Fred Trump Jr., and the only member of the Trump family with a doctorate in clinical psychology. For years, she has publicly warned that Donald Trump displays dangerous psychological patterns. But this interview became different because she connected his behavior directly to the decline of Fred Trump Sr., the Trump family patriarch. During the interview, Mary Trump explained that when she watches Donald Trump speaking publicly, she increasingly sees similarities to her grandfather during the final years of his life. She described moments of confusion, disorientation, memory problems, and behavior that reminded her of Fred Trump Sr. before his dementia became impossible to hide. According to Mary Trump, the family eventually protected Fred Trump Sr. from public appearances because his condition had become obvious to relatives and close associates. She recalled repeated questions, confusion about time and place, memory lapses, and the gradual collapse of his ability to recognize people around him. Fred Trump Sr. was diagnosed with mild senile dementia in 1991 before later dying in 1999 at age 93 after suffering serious health complications. Mary Trump says she personally witnessed that painful decline over many years. What made the interview explosive was her claim that Donald Trump now appears to display several of the same warning signs she observed decades earlier inside the Trump family. Supporters dismissed the remarks as political attacks, while critics argued her professional background and personal experience made the comments impossible to ignore during an already heated national debate about Donald Trump's public behavior, memory, and mental sharpness. Mary Trump also argued that the public should stop pretending these moments are isolated mistakes because the pattern has continued growing visible during speeches, interviews, rallies, and media appearances. She insisted her concerns come from personal experience inside the Trump family rather than partisan hatred, making the controversy surrounding her comments even more explosive nationwide.
Yeah, it's extraordinary, the ongoing cover-up that has taken place. We're going to continue to stay on the case, led by Robert Garcia and the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, who've been doing a tremendous job in making sure that we lift up the demands of the survivors for both transparency and accountability, which is why we haven't relented as it relates to making sure that Pam Bondi is forced and compelled to testify under oath. And we're going to continue to press our case forward because clearly we're in the midst of a cover-up. The Trump administration is hiding something, and the American people deserve to know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
My understanding is Bondi does not want to be under oath the same way Lutnick wasn't, and she doesn't want to be on videotape at the end of May because she doesn't want the American people to see her reaction the same way people couldn't see Lutnick's reaction, although that transcript is absolutely heinous when I read it. So what's your reaction and what you want to say to Pam Bondi about the fact that she refuses to do this in video, and Republicans who are basically enabling that in the House Oversight Committee saying no video?
She came before the Judiciary Committee and embarrassed herself. In fact, because of the pressure that House Democrats put on her at that Judiciary Committee hearing, we believe eventually it resulted in her being terminated, just like we forced Kristi Noem out of her position as Secretary of Homeland Security. But Pam Bondi came before the House and she tried to act like a gangster in front of us. And so where's that gangster persona right now? Show up under oath, testify on camera so that the American people can see you. Or was it all just a fraudulent act and performance for Donald Trump? The stakes are high right now, and you're going to be forced to testify under oath on camera one way or the other. You can either do it now, or you can wait until Democrats take back control of the House of Representatives, and you will be compelled to do it then. But you are not going to be able to evade the scrutiny that comes from testifying in the public domain.
Hey, obviously the big story of the week, although there are many other big stories we shouldn't ignore, but, is this Epstein stuff, right?
Yeah.
It appears your Uncle Donald, is kind of having a baby over this. He is starting to criticize his supporters. He's angry that many parts of MAGA seem quite fixated on this. I would just love to hear your reaction to the whole damn thing.
Yeah, well, the whole damn thing is fascinating, quite frankly, for many reasons. But let's start with what, I don't know if it's the most obvious one, but it's the most obvious one to me. Donald is somebody who has lived his entire life with complete impunity. Like, he's been able to get away with everything. And he thinks it's because he's a genius, right? He thinks...
According to her verified biography published through Substack, her best-selling books, and her academic credentials, Dr. Mary L. Trump holds a doctorate in clinical psychology from Adelphi University and spent decades observing the Trump family from inside its private world. She later transformed those experiences into public commentary, books, podcasts, interviews, and political analysis aimed directly at Donald Trump's behavior and leadership style. In 2020, she released Too Much and Never Enough: How My Family Created the World's Most Dangerous Man, a book that became an international bestseller and intensified national debate surrounding Donald Trump's personality and psychological condition. She followed that publication with A Reckoning in 2021, while continuing to host the Mary Trump Show on Politicon, operate her own podcast, and publish a daily Substack newsletter titled The Good in Us, which attracted hundreds of thousands of readers and subscribers across multiple platforms. Throughout those appearances, Mary Trump repeatedly described her uncle using blunt clinical language that generated enormous political controversy. In one published Substack statement, she argued that Donald Trump's fear of failure was so overwhelming that he created what she described as a delusional system, allowing him to convince both himself and supporters that falsehoods were actually true. During a separate interview with Newsweek, she stated that Donald Trump had been failing cognitive tests for years, while also failing, in her words, as a moral human being lacking empathy or ethical responsibility. Those remarks returned to public attention again on Friday, May 15, 2026, during escalating international tensions connected to the Iran conflict. After leaving Beijing, Trump addressed reporters at the airport and discussed conversations with Chinese President Xi Jinping concerning Iran and nuclear weapons. According to televised coverage, Trump then stated that the United States did not need the Strait of Hormuz open as much as China did, comments that immediately triggered confusion and criticism across political media. At the same time, global shipping disruptions redirected commercial vessels, rising fuel prices, and growing military tensions dominated international headlines, while China's foreign ministry publicly argued the Iran conflict should never have happened in the first place. For critics, the statement symbolized the president speaking about global energy markets with unusual detachment during an international crisis damaging economic stability. Supporters defended Trump by arguing he was emphasizing America's energy production and warning China about its dependence on shipping routes. Nevertheless, the combination of Mary Trump's psychological warnings and Trump's overseas remarks created another political moment dominating cable news, podcasts, commentary, and social media discussion.
Yes?
Well, thanks. Glad to be here again. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. And it's really So a lot hasn't changed, but in some ways, a lot has gotten worse, obviously, with everything that's going on with Iran, the damage that's doing to this economy. Gas pumps. I was at a gas station that's almost within sight of my office. I think this morning it was $4.54 a gallon. And that's actually one of the cheaper gas stations in Bucks County. And that's the kind of pain that people are facing here in this district and in all over the country. And it's affecting working class people. It's affecting working families. It's affecting those people who are already living paycheck to paycheck. The people that Donald Trump clearly doesn't care about. The people that this Republican Congress don't care about, because they're not the ones putting hundreds of thousands of dollars into Brian Fitzpatrick's campaign coffers. And they're not the ones who got the big tax breaks that Brian Fitzpatrick voted for. But it's real pain for people. I was just talking over the weekend to a guy who's a researcher. He works at Temple University, does asthma research. And he said the cuts to NIH research funding have just been, killing, just researchers who are just trying to help, people live better lives, help kids, who have asthma so they can live the kind of life that every other kid wants to live. And that's the kind of thing, that's the kind of stuff that people don't always see, they don't always hear about, but it's happening. And it's happening under this president, and it's happening under this congressman who's standing by and saying, listen, like you said, he says, well, listen to what I say, but don't watch what I do. Don't pay attention to the fact that he voted to cut ACA tax credits. Don't pay attention to the fact that Fitzpatrick voted to cut funding for SNAP and Medicaid so that billionaires give a tax break. Don't pay attention to the fact that he just had Speaker of the House Mike Johnson here a couple weeks ago to do a fundraiser for him in the district. So it's clear that Brian Fitzpatrick is worried. He spent 10 years in office now, really kind of screwing over the people of this district. And he's going to have to, be held accountable for it. That's what I'm trying to do.
I visited Bucks before, my younger brother, George.
That he can manipulate people to do whatever he wants them to do. But the truth of the matter is, it's because he's been enabled his whole life by people like my grandfather and others. And now, most recently, of course, it's been the Republican Party and, of course, his followers. What he doesn't understand is that he can't turn off the switch. Now, I understand why he would think that, because, again, he has gotten away with everything pretty much.
Before it began.
Then you had Democratic Senator Durbin cross-examining the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Dan Kane, who they call Raisin Kane. Durbin has a basic question. So could you explain to the American people why this vast investment that you're coming here asking for a lot more money, right? You want a $1 trillion defense budget right now. Last year it was $1 trillion. The year before that it was $700 million. If y'all can't, open up the Strait of Hormuz, why should we give you more money? If the last time we gave you $1 trillion, this is the result? Watch this. Let's play it.
Could you explain to the American people why, with the vast investment we've made in national defense and military, how Iran, after they've been attacked by us, is still capable of stopping the traffic in the Straits of Hormuz?
Well, sure, it's a complex situation out there with a lot of different small boats that are out there and other capabilities. Some of this is on the commercial traffickers. Some of this is on, again, back to the main problem, and that's Iran holding the global economy hostage through the Straits. I would encourage them to think wisely about their next moves and to take the opportunity to open the Straits. They have that choice to make.
They certainly do. I guess the question in my mind is, as we talk about $1 trillion plus budgets for our military, it appears that a very small budget.
Yesterday, inside the Great Hall of the People, Chinese President Xi Jinping delivered a warning to Donald Trump about Taiwan that immediately intensified fears surrounding the growing tensions between Washington and Beijing. According to reports carried by NBC News and CNBC, she warned Trump that mishandling Taiwan could lead to direct clashes and even open conflict capable of placing the entire relationship between both countries in serious jeopardy. Chinese officials reportedly told Trump that the future of relations depended entirely on how carefully the Taiwan issue was handled moving forward. Notably, the official United States summary of the meeting avoided mentioning Taiwan completely, while Trump was still attending events in Beijing, including appearances with Xi at the Temple of Heaven. Russia launched the largest aerial assault of the entire Ukraine war. According to Reuters and CNN, Russia fired more than 1,500 drones and dozens of missiles across Ukraine, within only 2 days, leaving destruction across multiple cities. In Kiev, 12 people were reported dead, including a 12-year-old girl, after a 9-story apartment building in the Darnitsia district collapsed with all 18 apartments destroyed. Ukraine's foreign minister publicly declared that both the United States and China possess enough leverage over Vladimir Putin to pressure Moscow into ending the war. Yet neither Trump nor she responded publicly to the appeal. At the same time, political attention inside America continued shifting toward Mary Trump and her repeated claims regarding Donald Trump's psychological condition, her best-selling book Too Much and Never Enough, and her Daily Beast interview describing similarities between Donald Trump and Fred Trump Sr. during his decline with dementia. Meanwhile, additional controversies exploded simultaneously, including debates surrounding the Iran conflict, Trump's comments about the Strait of Hormuz, Pentagon statements suggesting future strikes might not require congressional approval, media pressure involving ABC licensing disputes, and renewed criticism from late-night television hosts, including Jimmy Kimmel and David Letterman, all contributing to an atmosphere of extraordinary political instability throughout the week. Critics argue that the mounting combination of international crises, domestic political battles, media intimidation claims, and public questions surrounding Trump's judgment created one of the most volatile political environments in American history. Supporters dismissed the criticism as exaggeration, but opponents insisted the stakes surrounding foreign policy, democracy, and press freedom were becoming impossible to ignore.
So it seems that this is the pattern. A blue state is already on the enemy's list because blue states don't support Donald Trump. They don't vote for him. We hate his policies and we hate him. But sometimes it's a new thing that draws his ire, or I should probably say, becomes a handy excuse for his increasingly fascistic and hostile behavior towards blue cities and blue states.
Winning. Let's play this clip.
It doesn't appear that hostilities have ended. And so the question to you is whether or not the administration has considered or had intended to seek an authorization of use of military force from the Congress.
Senator, our view is that should the president make the decision to recommence, that we would have all the authorities necessary to do so.
Do you think that it would be helpful to the president if it was made clear that in fact the Congress did provide an AUMF?
I think the president, our view is that he has all the authorities he needs under Article 2.
And then you had Democratic Senator Shaheen from New Hampshire cross-examining Hegseth right here. Let's play this clip.
Senator, we know Russia is a nefarious actor on a lot of levels and account for that, but I would say the destruction of Iran's defense industrial base has been highly
all
effective
evidence to the contrary. We're not accounting for that if we're giving Russia the opportunity to earn $4 billion a month, $20 billion by the end of the year if we leave those sanctions lifted for that time, during which they can continue to fund Iran.
Well, the destruction of defense of Iran's defense industrial base has been clear and overwhelming. The destruction of Iran's defense industrial base has been clear and overwhelming.
Well, it's certainly not clear to me as a member of the committee, because what we see is Iran still producing drones. They're still engaged in this conflict. We have not won this war.
There's a difference between
the rhetoric.
Pulling a drone out of a cave that's been collapsed and producing more drones. That's a different thing.
Well, maybe so. But if Iran still has almost 50% of their missile capacity and the ability to pull drones out of caves and still injure our allies and U.S. service members, then...
According to statements attributed to Senator Elizabeth Warren during a widely discussed NPR interview, growing pressure against major media organizations has created fear throughout the American press industry. Warren argued that recent actions involving the FCC, corporate settlements, and political pressure campaigns represented a dangerous escalation capable of intimidating television networks, journalists, comedians, and independent media voices alike. Her remarks came during a moment when several major entertainment and news organizations face lawsuits, regulatory scrutiny, and public attacks connected to Donald Trump and his political allies. Critics argued that networks were increasingly bending under financial and political pressure, while supporters of Trump-claimed media companies were finally being held accountable for biased reporting and misinformation. At the center of the broader conversation remained Mary Trump, whose public criticism of Donald Trump continued drawing national attention through books, podcasts, interviews, and online commentary. According to her verified biography, Dr. Mary L. Trump was born on May 3, 1965, into the powerful Trump family dynasty built by Fred Trump Sr. Her father, Fred Trump Jr., was Donald Trump's older brother, but according to Mary Trump's own account, he struggled under intense pressure inside the family business environment and eventually developed alcoholism before dying in 1981 at only 42 years old. Mary Trump later described those experiences in her best-selling 2020 book Too Much and Never Enough, arguing that the family's internal culture rewarded aggression, punished weakness, and emotionally damaged multiple relatives across generations. She explained that Donald Trump eventually inherited the dominant position within the family after Fred Trump Jr. failed to meet expectations established by Fred Trump Sr. Mary Trump says she personally observed these family dynamics throughout childhood, while later studying similar psychological behavior academically during her education and professional training. After earning a doctorate in clinical psychology from Adelphi University, she practiced psychology while continuing to analyze the emotional and behavioral patterns she believed shaped Donald Trump's personality. In 2020, she published Too Much and Never Enough, a book that immediately became one of the biggest nonfiction releases in recent publishing history. The book debuted at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list and reportedly sold more than 1 million copies during its opening week alone, becoming the fastest-selling nonfiction release ever published by Simon & Schuster at that time. Since then, Mary Trump has remained one of Donald Trump's most visible family critics, using interviews, podcasts, newsletters, and political commentary to argue that the public should take her psychological warnings seriously.
Down to it, when you've got families here that can barely afford rent, that are struggling to find a home, you have young people here who can't afford to start their lives in this district, county they grew up in, district they grew up in, where they want to live. They went to school here, came back after college, they're starting their lives, they work in the area, can't afford to stay here. This district is expected to lose population over the next couple decades. The only district really in the suburban Philadelphia area that's expected to do that. And it's because of affordability. People are having trouble, small business owners having trouble making ends meet in terms of, their health care. The tariffs are affecting them in terms of how they can, deal with their customers overseas and how they're dealing with customers at home, where they're usually raising prices so that they can cover the cost of the tariffs. And so, it is, of all the things that have happened, there's been a million examples of how out of touch, how callous, how incompetent this congressional leadership is, Brian Fitzpatrick is, Donald Trump is. The ballroom, I think, I'm wondering if it's going to put people over the top to say that you want to spend $1 billion on something that obviously, is really just for the president's ego. And that doesn't help people afford a house. It doesn't help them, pay their mortgage or pay their rent. It doesn't make gas cheaper. It doesn't make healthcare cheaper. It doesn't help those kids who are struggling to get by. It doesn't help their schools. It doesn't help pave the roads. It doesn't help keep people safe. It doesn't do anything except, give Donald Trump as an ego boost, which is the last thing he needs, quite frankly.
There's nothing to see or hear move along. It isn't going to fly, and it is kind of fascinating that is this issue. But I think he does not know how to process it at all, because unbelievably, for those of us who believe in accountability and who believe he's done horrible things for decades now, he cannot process the fact that he doesn't control this.
Let's watch this.
Drone program. The president said just a week ago that Iran maybe had 18 to 19% of their missile capacity left. But there is public reporting suggesting that our intelligence agencies say that Iran still has 70% of their missile and drone capability, which would be a failure of our objectives if that were to be true. What can you tell us about the number of missiles and drones that they have left, and do you dispute that intelligence estimate?
Sir, I'm not going to comment, with deep respect for the question, I'm not going to comment in this forum on what may or may not have been opined on by the IC, which would suggest a leak or a confirmation of any intel. So while I appreciate the question, I hope you'll also appreciate my not answering it.
Well, then just give me what is the president said that 80% of.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on BDA on either way, sir.
Well, then how do we or the American public assess the success of the mission when you've stated publicly the purpose of the mission is to destroy their missile and drone capability? How do we assess whether we should continue funding this if you can't state?
Well, I'm not going to answer what you guys in the Congress considers the decision criteria around continued funding or not. What I know is that I've not read the report that you're talking about. All of our battle damage assessment matters are classified, and it would be inappropriate for me to comment in this forum on that. And I appreciate the question, but I'm not going to answer it.
Let me just put it to Secretary Hegseth. The president said that 80% of their missile capacity had been destroyed. This public report says it's only 30%. Can you give us an answer as to what the real number is?
I mean, I would answer the same way as the chairman.
Not talking to this committee about the damage assessment.
Not validating leaked information that could be wrong or not wrong. Why would I?
Every comment, share, subscription, and membership helps independent media survive in an environment that many journalists now describe as increasingly hostile toward critical reporting and political dissent. But what Mary Trump said during her November 2025 Daily Beast podcast interview may be the most detailed public statement she has ever delivered regarding Donald Trump's cognitive condition. According to Yahoo News coverage based on the official Daily Beast interview transcript with Joanna Coles, Mary Trump carefully explained her professional limitations before describing what she believed she was observing in her uncle. She stated that she is a clinical psychologist rather than a neuropsychologist, but argued that her training and family experience allowed her to recognize signs associated with neurological decline and cognitive deterioration. During the interview, Mary Trump claimed that when she watches Donald Trump publicly, she increasingly sees similarities to her grandfather, Fred Trump Sr., during the early stages of dementia. She described visible confusion, apparent disorientation regarding time and place, worsening short-term memory, and what she believed were growing impulse control problems. According to the interview transcript, she warned that these behaviors appeared similar to patterns she personally witnessed inside the Trump family decades earlier while watching Fred Trump Sr. decline. Mary Trump explained that her grandfather was once highly intelligent, sharp, and extremely capable in business before dementia gradually changed his behavior and mental condition during the 70s and 80s. She recalled moments when Fred Trump Sr. no longer appeared fully aware of where he was, why he was present, or even who surrounded him. According to Mary Trump, it became alarming for her to observe what she believed were comparable signs now appearing in Donald Trump during speeches, interviews, and public appearances. Those comments gained even more attention because they arrived during a week dominated by international crises and controversial remarks from Trump himself following meetings in Beijing with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Critics pointed to recent public moments where Trump appeared confused about historical details, geography, and chronology, including statements involving Robert E. Lee, Greenland, Iceland, and comments about members of the British royal family. Mary Trump argued these incidents should no longer be dismissed as harmless verbal mistakes because the overall pattern appeared increasingly serious and consistent. Supporters of Donald Trump rejected her assessment entirely, accusing her of political bias and exploiting private family history for public attention. Nevertheless, the interview intensified national debate surrounding Trump's age, public behavior, decision-making, and overall mental sharpness during a period of enormous global instability and political tension. Meanwhile, supporters insisted Trump remained energetic and fully capable of handling international negotiations despite criticism from opponents and family members. Yet Mary Trump's remarks continued spreading across podcasts and social media, fueling one of the explosive political debates of the year.
Your reaction to all of that?
Yeah, Donald Trump and Republicans continue to be focused on self-aggrandizing behavior, celebrating themselves. Even though they've been a complete and total disaster, they failed the country in every way possible, but they have zero interest in actually making life better for the American people. Instead, he's focused on spending $1 billion in taxpayer money to construct a monument to himself on public property, the east wing of the White House, and build this so-called ballroom. I mean, Donald Trump is making the case for why Republicans need to be thrown out of office in November, because these people are getting ready to spend $1 billion when they won't spend a dime to actually make life more affordable for the American people. Wouldn't spend a dime to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Don't want to refund the taxpayer money that was taken from everyday Americans as a result of the Trump tariffs. Instead, they want to give it to their corporate friends, family, and buddies. This is actual corruption unfolding in real time before the eyes of the American people, and it will be a voting issue in November. We are committed to cleaning up corruption and making sure that we actually restore some integrity here in Washington so that the focus is on actually improving the quality of life of the American people, as opposed to subsidizing the lifestyles of the rich and shameless, which is what Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans have been all about.
Leader Jeffries, you think we're
afraid of is being found out, to be to have people understand that everything about him that's projected publicly is based on a myth, that he's literally nothing of who he claims to be. He's nothing other people have purported him to be, starting with my grandfather, who's the man responsible for having created this myth.
The Senate hearing that just took place involving Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Kane, and other top defense officials did not go well for them. It did not go well for the Trump regime. Even MAGA Republicans were calling them out for allowing Iran to control the Strait of Hormuz. Lindsey Graham, MAGA Republican Trump sycophant, was cross-examining Hegseth and Kane, and Lindsey Graham said, "No wonder this damn thing is going nowhere because of you and how the Trump regime is handling this." Watch what Lindsey Graham says. Here, play this clip.
Pakistan. Are you aware of reports that Pakistan are allowing their bases to be used to park Iranian aircraft? General King?
Sir, I've seen one report on that.
Well, is it accurate?
Sir, I think based on the variety of classification matters.
Let me just say, do you agree if it is accurate, that is sort of inconsistent with it being a peace mediator?
Sir, I wouldn't want to comment on that based on the ongoing negotiations and Pakistan's role.
Secretary Hegseth, if the mediator is allowing reconnaissance aircraft at Iran to be parked in Pakistani air bases, do you think that's consistent with being a fair mediator?
I wouldn't want to get in the middle of these negotiations.
Yeah.
I want
I do. I want to get in the middle of these negotiations. I don't trust Pakistan as far as I can throw them. If they actually do have Iranian aircraft parked in Pakistan bases to protect Iranian military assets, that tells me we should be looking maybe for somebody else to mediate.
Mary Trump's warnings gained additional attention after Fred Trump III, Donald Trump's nephew, reportedly echoed similar concerns during a separate podcast appearance where he discussed the Trump family's history with dementia and cognitive decline. According to accounts surrounding the interview, Fred Trump III described patterns inside the family that supporters of Mary Trump believe reinforce her public assessment regarding Donald Trump's behavior and mental sharpness. Those comments arrived during an already explosive political week dominated by international crises, economic fears, and mounting scrutiny surrounding Trump's overseas diplomacy. On Friday, May 15, 2026, Donald Trump departed Beijing after completing a 2-day summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping. According to CNN coverage from the airport, Trump told reporters that the United States did not need the Strait of Hormuz open nearly as much as China did, remarks that immediately triggered intense debate considering the growing global energy crisis connected to the Iran conflict. China's foreign ministry then publicly stated that the Iran war should never have happened, while also opposing efforts to militarize the strait or impose tolls on international shipping routes. Critics interpreted the statement as a direct rejection of Trump's naval blockade strategy, while he was still standing beside Xi on Chinese soil. At the same time, the Iran war had entered its 77th day, with reported costs climbing into the tens of billions of dollars, while energy officials warn Americans about rising fuel prices and broader economic instability. Trump also faced criticism for comments suggesting he did not spend much time thinking about Americans struggling financially during crisis. One day earlier, Xi Jinping reportedly warned Trump that mishandling Taiwan could produce dangerous clashes or even open conflict between China and the United States, capable of placing the entire relationship in jeopardy. According to reports from NBC News and CNBC, she told Trump that careful management of Taiwan would preserve stability, while reckless handling could risk direct confrontation between both nations. The private meeting reportedly lasted more than 2 hours, although the official United States summary avoided mentioning Taiwan entirely. Trump later praised Xi publicly, calling him a friend and inviting him for a reciprocal state visit to the White House later in the year. Meanwhile, as ceremonial photographs were taking place at the Temple of Heaven involving Trump, Xi, Eric Trump, and Laura Trump, Russia launched the largest aerial assault of the entire Ukraine war. According to Reuters, CNN, CBS News, and PBS reporting, Russia fired more than 1,500 drones and dozens of missiles into Ukraine across 2 days, with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky describing it as the largest attack ever directed at the capital city during the war.
It comes down to what we did in 2019. We worked our asses off. We knocked thousands of doors. We went out and talked to people, met with people. You know, I've done 6 town halls in the past year. Brian Fitzpatrick hasn't done a in-person town hall in 9 years. When you talk about hiding from voters, you talk about hiding from the people in your district, the people who you serve. You know, he's the one who's bailing out of parades that he's supposed to be in because he doesn't want to interact with voters. He's afraid that, God forbid, there be a protester who might, not like something he did. He doesn't want to have to face that music. I'm the one who's out there every day, proud to be a county commissioner here in this county. This county makes up 90% of the district. Focused on delivering results for people, focused on delivering results when it comes to mental health care funding, when it comes to public safety, when it comes to sustainability. We are doing great work here, and I'm going to make that, my mission to serve the people of this district. I'm proud to have Governor Shapiro's endorsement. He helped us get reelected in 2023. People know what a phenomenal job he's done as governor in difficult times, dealing with obviously a president who clearly doesn't like him and doesn't know what he's doing. And a divided legislature. He is going to roll through re-election the way he rolled through the first time when he was elected. I'm proud to be on the ballot with him and looking forward to work with him. He grew up just outside the district. His wife's actually from the district. So it's sort of the way we tease him is that, and sometimes here in Bucks County, we say we like, we love Josh, but we love Lori a little more because she's from here. But no, it's going to be, the people of this country are starting to realize what a force he is, like we know here in Pennsylvania.
Here, listen to what they had to say here. Let's play this clip.
On April 29th, as you indicated to the ranking member, you said that the Iran war had cost $25 billion in total. You reaffirmed that today. Do you have any other updated costs or projections since that testimony that you've given? Outside reporting estimates have indicated that the war costs could be $1 billion a day. Do you have anything to share?
Yeah, thanks for the question, sir. So at the time of testimony in front of the ask, it was $25 billion. But the Joint Staff team and the Comptroller team are constantly looking at that estimate. And so now we think it's closer to 29. That's because of updated repair and replacement of equipment costs, and also just general operational costs to keep people in theater.
Then you had Democratic Senator Murphy, and here he cross-examined General Kane and Hegseth. Then you had Democratic senators like Senator Reid cross-examining Hegseth and Kane and some of the other top Defense Department officials here about how they are understating the costs of the war by billions of dollars by not including critical things that cost money, that now the $29 billion estimate, which went up $5 billion or $4 billion just during the hearing itself, is completely understating things. Here, play this clip.
Mr. Secretary, we have been trying to track down the expenditures in the Operation Epic Fury and Operation Freedom now. And we've sent letters and we've got very few responses. We've been sending the letters since March 10th. We did understand that it was released that in the first 6 days, $11.3 billion was spent. And then recently, we were told $25 billion was spent. Today, I think the number is $29 billion. Can you provide some details as to what consists of that $29 billion? Have we counted every?
The escalating international crisis intensified further after massive Russian attacks struck Kyiv and surrounding areas, leaving widespread destruction and civilian casualties across Ukraine. According to Reuters coverage, 12 people were killed in Kyiv, including a 12-year-old girl, after a 9-story apartment building in the Darnitsia neighborhood was completely destroyed, wiping out all 18 apartments inside the structure. Ukraine's foreign minister, Andriy Sybiha, publicly declared that both the United States and China possess enough influence over Moscow to pressure Vladimir Putin into ending the war immediately. Meanwhile, tensions in the Middle East continued rising after United States forces reportedly struck Iranian targets near Qeshm and Bandar Abbas during military operations connected to the widening Iran conflict. According to reports, 3 American Navy destroyers later came under coordinated attack involving Iranian missiles, drones, and fast-moving boats. Donald Trump responded publicly by minimizing the severity of the confrontation, describing the strikes as a love tap, while also warning Iran during remarks delivered near the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. Trump stated that if a ceasefire failed, the world would see one big glow coming out of Iran, comments that immediately generated international concern about possible escalation. Additional controversy emerged surrounding domestic political developments in Washington. Senator Chuck Grassley released Judiciary Committee reconciliation language that included a $1 billion appropriation connected to security upgrades and modernization projects inside the White House compound, extending through 2029. Critics questioned the timing and scope of the funding proposal, while supporters defended it as necessary for presidential security. At the same time, Trump signed a controversial trademark agreement connected to Palm Beach International Airport that would rename the facility after him beginning July 2026. Another political firestorm erupted after reports claimed federal prosecutors informed the House Judiciary Committee that senior Justice Department officials pressured them to accelerate an indictment involving the Southern Poverty Law Center. Simultaneously, fierce debate exploded over Tennessee redistricting plans only days after a major Supreme Court ruling weakened portions of the Voting Rights Act, intensifying national arguments surrounding voting access and political power.
You got the big endorsement from Governor Shapiro. The election's coming up. May 19th is the primary. Then you go on to the general. So as you're traveling around Bucks, though, and Fitzpatrick, is ostensibly hiding from a lot of the voters of Bucks, but writing a lot of press releases to try to position himself as, look, I'm still your guy, and, try to, cut whatever, last minute, whatever the things he can do to say, look what I delivered you, this and that and the other thing. Remember, how do you communicate to the voters? I mean, a lot of it's just look at what's happening right now. But how do you do what you did in 2019 for the Bucks Commission here right now?
Yeah, Senator Reid. So I testified this morning to HACD that between the Joint Staff and the Comptroller staff, our operational cost estimate is now $29 billion. A lot of that increase comes from having a refined estimate on repair or replacement costs for equipment. Our munitions costs are fairly fixed. We think they're very accurate, and there's some O&M costs there as well. We're not making an estimate for MILCON at this time. We don't know what our future posture is going to be. We don't know how those bases would be reconstructed, and we don't know what percentage our allies and partners will pay for that reconstruction.
So you do not consider installations that have been damaged in the conflict, correct?
We just don't have a good estimate at this time.
So it's not in the $29 billion?
That's correct.
Expended weapons, are they totally included within the estimate?
Yes, to the best of my knowledge, we have a full count of the expended weapons.
And weapons transferred to other countries in the region, are they counted in?
I would want to double check to make sure we have that accurately.
Please. I mean, you're coming up and asking for another significant supplemental, et cetera. And before we can, I think, reasonably appropriate additional money, we have to find out how the existing appropriated dollars have been spent. So that's critically important.
And here was the moment where the top Defense Department officials start to admit that actually, yeah, we said it was 25 billion, but now it's actually more. Republicans are going to get thrown out in the midterms and you're going to become the speaker. You think the Democrats are going to win in these midterms? Lots of people very worried after the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act and then these MAGA Republican states eliminated all these black congressional districts. So where do things stand there?
Yeah, it's outrageous what has happened in terms of what the Supreme Court has unleashed, the largest assault on black representation since the Jim Crow era. There's a return to Jim Crow-like tactics in terms of destroying black opportunity districts all across the South. We have to continue to forcefully respond, not just in terms of pushing back in the South as it relates to what happens, but in states all across the country, and that's an ongoing effort. Now, we began this Congress only 3 seats short. So Republicans have the narrowest majority of any party since 1930, the Great Depression. During the first Trump midterm election, we were 24 seats short. And in that midterm election, Democrats flipped 40 seats. And 31 of those seats were, in fact, in districts that Donald Trump had just won in 2016. We're in a more favorable political environment at this particular moment in time. And we only need to win a fraction of those 40 seats that we won back in 2018. So even with what they're doing in the Deep South, at the end of the day, and we still have litigation in Virginia, we have litigation in Florida, and there's ongoing litigation in Wisconsin. When we get to the end of this process, at best, Republicans will have increased their margin by maybe 2 or 3 seats, at best. And at the end of the day, we are going to take back control of the House of Representatives.
Leader Jeffries, we'll leave it at that. Thanks so much for joining us as always.
On April 29th, the Tennessee state legislature voted to eliminate the state's only majority black congressional district, a move that immediately intensified national debate surrounding voting rights, representation, and redistricting following recent Supreme Court decisions affecting the Voting Rights Act. Civil rights advocates argued the decision weakened minority political influence, while supporters defended the plan as a legal restructuring process. At the same time, growing pressure on major media personalities and television networks continued dominating political discussion across the country. Independent media voices increasingly described themselves as a final barrier against corporate and political intimidation inside American journalism. Against that backdrop, late-night television became another major battleground during a turbulent political week. On Monday, May 11th, Stephen Colbert reunited with Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, Seth Meyers, and John Oliver during a highly publicized Strike Force 5 event that mixed comedy with political commentary. According to NPR coverage, Colbert joked that Jon Stewart had become the designated survivor because somebody needed to remain alive for Donald Trump to stay angry at publicly. Jimmy Kimmel also reflected on the strange isolation of television controversy, joking during the reunion that only the comedians themselves seemed immediately aware whenever another political media firestorm exploded around them. One day later, Kimmel appeared at Disney's 2026 upfront presentation at the Javits Center, where he openly joked about the financial and political headaches his monologues had allegedly caused the company. According to Deadline, Kimmel humorously claimed he may have cost Disney billions of dollars because of the controversies surrounding his public criticism of Trump and conservative politics. Meanwhile, Stephen Colbert hosted former President Barack Obama for a major televised interview connected to the new Obama Presidential Center in Chicago. The appearance came only days after Obama delivered controversial remarks in another interview discussing Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the broader Middle East conflict. At the same time, veteran television host David Letterman publicly attacked CBS, reportedly calling network executives lying weasels during comments that fueled even more criticism surrounding corporate media behavior. Kimmel's recent monologues also continued drawing attention online after he mocked Donald Trump with harsh jokes and comparisons that quickly spread across social media platforms and entertainment coverage.
Through the rap. He lives nearby, and I'm surprised, Bob, the people there, they don't love the idea of golden ballrooms for Donald Trump. They don't love the idea of painting the reflecting pool American flag blue, or they don't like triumphal arches or turning the Rose Garden into a Mar-a-Lago style club. I mean, surely the number one priority, Bob, on the people's mind of Bucks County is UFC fights on the White House lawn, or ripping apart the public golf courses in D.C. to turn them into Trump vanity projects. So are you telling me that the Fitzpatrick-Trump plan to have Donald Trump live out whatever dystopian, sick fantasy that he has, you're telling me the Bucks, they're not cheerleading all of that? That seems to be what Trump and Fitzpatrick care most about right now.
States of America.
Well, it seems to be those coveted H200 semiconductor chips, one of the things that he gave that for national security reasons, it wasn't even under discussion, but Donald Trump seemed to give that away. And weak cards, and he showed his weak cards while he was there. He's like, look at my weak cards, everybody. But I want to talk about Donald Trump's golden ballroom, which we now know is going to cost $1 billion. MAGA Republicans trying to push that through to make the taxpayers pay $1 billion for that. A golden triumphal arch to be bigger than Pyongyang's arch, reflecting pool, turning it into an actual pool, coating it blue with someone who he claimed was his pool guy, but then said it wasn't his pool guy on the no bid contract. I can keep going through these. $10 billion settlement with himself in a lawsuit that he brought against the IRS that he's making taxpayers pay for. I guess this is what he's focused on. So Then we heard from Democratic Senator Coons, who, called out Hegseth, who, served in Afghanistan, and said, you love to bash NATO, but you do realize that NATO was on the front lines of the war with us, and our NATO allies, they lost a ton of service members. Do you recall that? And then Hegseth's like, I don't have the numbers in front of me. And again, the Trump regime continuing to attack NATO, and just look how just utterly foolish and, just unprepared and just deranged these Trump regime Defense Department officials look. Play this clip.
Becoming a burden with political limitations. I'm not talking about the troops.
Thank you. Our president said in Europe that we never asked for and never received anything from our NATO allies. Was that your experience in Afghanistan, serving and fighting alongside our NATO allies?
I've written extensively about that, and the vast majority of my experience was frustration with the limits of what those troops were able to do because of the political caveats, rules of engagement, and limits that came from their
But
capitals.
You don't doubt or question that about a third of all the combat casualties in our war in Afghanistan were our NATO partners and allies.
I would have to go back and check that number, but I take your word for it.
Let me just assert that hundreds and hundreds of service members from, as you put it, Australia, the United Kingdom, as well as many other of our allies, served, fought, and died alongside us. So I'm just going to simply say, in terms of our reliance on our partnerships, I'll agree with the chairman that at a moment when Russia and China, North Korea and Iran are coming closer together and delivering a bedeviling lethality in this ongoing war in Iran, for which we don't have a clear strategy or clear answers, our better strategy would be to partner more closely with Ukraine, dig in deeper with our real values-based allies, our treaty allies in the Western Pacific and in Europe, and together find a path out of this rather than berating them and bullying them for not coming along in a war.
The political and cultural backlash surrounding Donald Trump continued accelerating this week as comedians, celebrities, media personalities, and political activists delivered increasingly harsh criticism about his leadership, public behavior, and the growing international crises unfolding around his administration. Jimmy Kimmel joked during one recent monologue that if anyone had a relative posting online 18 times every day, most families would immediately become worried about that person's mental condition. Other late-night remarks became even sharper. According to HuffPost coverage, Kimmel compared Trump's approach to negotiation to an unhealthy obsession, while also mocking his appearance and memory during another segment. Meanwhile, Marjorie Taylor Greene shocked many conservatives after reportedly declaring MAGA dead during an appearance connected to the Ron Paul Institute in late April. Actor Robert De Niro participated in a nationwide economic blackout protest against what he described as rising fascism in America, while Whoopi Goldberg referred to the Trump administration as the Three Stooges of the Apocalypse during comments that quickly spread online. Bill Maher declared the Iran war effectively lost during his HBO program, Howard Stern reportedly told millions of SiriusXM listeners that Trump secretly despised many of his own supporters, and Rosie O'Donnell delivered fierce criticism from Dublin, while describing herself as everything the Trump administration hated about modern America. Meryl Streep praised Jimmy Kimmel during an interview, reportedly calling him a Knight Templar for continuing to confront political pressure publicly. George Clooney warned during the Chaplin Award Gala that America was facing a struggle for the soul of the republic itself, while conservative attorney George Conway reportedly explored a possible congressional campaign. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez also intensified attacks against Marjorie Taylor Greene during an appearance at the University of Chicago, labeling Greene a proven bigot and anti-Semite. All of these moments unfolded while Mary Trump's clinical assessment of Donald Trump continued dominating political discussion nationwide. Her warnings about confusion, memory decline, disorientation, and worsening impulse control collided with an already chaotic week involving China's Taiwan warnings, Russia's massive drone assault on Ukraine, the escalating Iran conflict, soaring war costs, growing congressional tension, and Trump's own controversial statements about energy markets and the financial struggles facing ordinary Americans.
Sultan Air Base.
Leader Jeffries, I want to get your reaction to Donald Trump's trip to China. On the one hand, you had Xi Jinping talking about a restructuring of global architecture, China being a dominant power, multilateralism. On the other hand, you had Donald Trump talking about Xi Jinping is so strong, you're such a good leader, I love to eat Chinese food, or there's lots of Chinese restaurants in the United States. What's your reaction to how America was being represented by Donald Trump in China?
Donald Trump went overseas to China and embarrassed the country, as always. It's unfortunate, but it's extraordinary to me that you had an American president go over to China and bend the knee to the Chinese Communist Party. It's because Donald Trump has put America in a position of weakness, including but not limited to by this reckless war of choice that has actually resulted in Iran being stronger today than they were before the United States of America went in, as a direct result of the strategic mishaps, the stumbling, fumbling, and bumbling of this corrosive, toxic, incompetent Trump administration, of course, including the so-called Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, the most unqualified Secretary of Defense in American history. And so Donald Trump went over to China with a weak hand. And as a result of it, I think America is not going to benefit in any way from the bilateral summit that took place over in China. God help us all when it comes out what Donald Trump gave away to the leader of the Chinese Communist Party because of how weak Donald Trump has been as president of the United States.
Then Hegseth said, though, I just want to remind Senator Durbin, we've been at war with Iran for 47 years. So it's actually a 47-year war. That's their line that they repeat over and over again. We've been at war for 47 years. This is just part of a 47-year war. And they use that to justify everything here. Let's play this clip.
As it pertains to, I actually didn't get a chance to reply to Senator Durbin, who said that Iran was attacked by us. I would take issue with that. For 47 years, we've been attacked by Iran, and they've been lying to pursue a nuclear weapon, and President Trump had the courage to do something about it.
Then more from Hegseth, getting performatively indignant, as Rupert puts it, instead of answering very basic questions from Senator Chris Coons. Let's play it.
The connection between their ability to close the Strait of Hormuz using fast boats and Shahed drones and our strategic goal, shared broadly, to prevent them from ever having a usable nuclear weapon is utterly unclear to me. And my question was, what's the plan for reopening the Strait of Hormuz to commercial traffic, given
shared broadly but never
prices?
Executed? Shared broadly but never executed because previous administration didn't have the willingness to actually do what it would take. And when Iran was at its weakest moments following the 12-day war, but still wanted the pursuit of a nuclear capability, President Trump made the courageous decision to go at their conventional umbrella and shield, which they were using to protect their nuclear program, which we knew came with threats and branches and sequels.
My concern, Mr. Secretary.
Then you had some
the controversy surrounding the Palm Beach Airport trademark agreement, the whistleblower allegations connected to the Southern Poverty Law Center investigation, the Tennessee redistricting battle, and the Strike Force 5 reunion all reinforced the same growing political reality dominating American public life. Increasingly, public figures across entertainment, journalism, politics, and activism are refusing to remain silent despite mounting pressure from corporations, government institutions, and political movements. Jimmy Kimmel openly joked during Disney's upfront presentation that he may have cost the company billions of dollars, while continuing to criticize Donald Trump publicly. David Letterman attacked CBS leadership directly, while George Clooney warned audiences that America was facing a struggle for the soul of the republic itself. Whoopi Goldberg described the Trump administration as the Three Stooges of the apocalypse, and even Marjorie Taylor Greene shocked conservatives by declaring MAGA effectively dead. Beneath all the headlines, critics argued the larger lesson remained the same. Authoritarian systems survive only when people become afraid to speak honestly, criticize power, or challenge political intimidation. According to that argument, the moment individuals stop censoring themselves, the illusion of uncontested power begins collapsing. Mary Trump became one of the clearest examples of that resistance. At 60 years old, she publicly discussed the dementia history inside the Trump family and openly described what she believed were visible signs of decline in Donald Trump himself, refusing to stay silent about experiences the family allegedly concealed for years. Meanwhile, Stephen Colbert continued confronting political pressure during the final days of the show, while Jimmy Kimmel refused to soften his criticism despite growing scrutiny involving Disney and FCC broadcast licenses. Robert De Niro, George Clooney, Rosie O'Donnell, Howard Stern, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Meryl Streep, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, David Letterman, George Conway, and Justin Pearson all continued speaking publicly despite backlash, criticism, or political consequences. Internationally, critics pointed to Saudi Arabia refusing American military requests, Iran resisting Trump's negotiating demands, and China refusing to allow Trump to dictate the tone of discussions in Beijing. Supporters of independent journalism argued these moments demonstrated the importance of media voices operating outside corporate ownership and government influence. According to that view, the pressure itself revealed why independent reporting and public dissent remained essential during periods of political instability and rising institutional fear.